All right, living with COVID-19 forced many of us to rethink our lives in terms of how we work, what our priorities are, and we've seen firsthand the pandemic's impact on everyone from essential workers to those working from home, students, teachers, and also included in that is the farming community who had to pivot just like the rest of us.
That's a big part of it. That's right. Here to tell us about how the pandemic has changed farming in the U.S., TV5's Trevor Sahaki. Good morning, Trevor.
Good morning, Blake and Colette. We all had to switch up our lifestyles last March to social distance and quarantine. But for farmers, isolation is easy. Still, as we found out, COVID found a way to force change. These cows, those chickens, and that dog all belong to, no, not Old MacDonald, but John Nelson and J. Nelson Farms.
Always enjoyed the farming, really loved being outdoors.
That much was obvious when he gave TV5 a tour of his land.
Go ahead and take shots whenever you want, I guess.
When the pandemic hit, that land would become his only sanctuary, but also his biggest challenge.
We gained business on a direct sales standpoint, but we certainly lost business in sales to institutions such as restaurants, schools, things like that.
His wife Tammy took on a more active role than she had before.
That was probably the biggest source of stress for my role on the job.
The Nelsons agreed direct-to-consumer online sales were the way to go.
To say that it was efficient from the start and we were confident in it, that certainly wasn't the case. We had lots of uncertainty and plenty of learning along the way.
Insecurity is the name of the farming game, and Michigan State University has an extension dedicated to managing farm stress.
The number of uncontrollable risk factors really, I think, contribute large in part to the stress that farmers face.
The data isn't pretty. A January 2020 study by the CDC found farmers die by suicide at a more than 30% higher rate than the average population.
I think agriculture ranks high among that because of the number of different uncontrollable risk factors.
Farmers can have high debt loads, and they can't control the weather, equipment breakdowns, market prices, or sometimes even the future of their own land. COVID only makes things worse. Though Nelson says he was just fine watching over his cattle, it's not hard to imagine on this 200-plus acre farm, many of us would be starved for socialization.
And I think the increased isolation that was essentially brought forth from the pandemic kind of continued to reduce the number of opportunities for farmers to stay connected with peers.
But John's wife knows him best.
He is and has always been very resilient and very positive, very optimistic. I'm usually the one who says, oh no, what are we going to do about this? And he knows we'll figure it out.
And they did.
We sold every animal we had available, and things looked really good. So yes, certainly direct to consumer, we expect it to be profitable to the point where we can sustain it.
On top of the thriving website, they installed a vending machine in their mini market in front of their farm.
Previously, when cars came into the driveway, we always thought, okay, those are people that want to see us. Now we watch cars come through the driveway and realize it's probably a customer.
Which allows John to keep living his dream, working above and below the ground he loves so much. And if you're watching this and thinking that you might want to utilize MSU's farming tools and programs, you can find a link to their extension's Farm Stress website in the hot links section of WNEM.com. Blake, Colette.
Trevor, I love that. I have to ask you this really quickly. Are they going to sustain that even after the pandemic, like their online sales and even that vending machine? That's kind of cool.
Yeah, they are, because they, as he said in the piece, they've found a lot of success with it. And because of that, they've realized we don't need to rely as much on the institutions, the restaurants, the schools, stuff like that. And people love it. I mean, I've tried some of the jerky from the farm, and it tastes really good.
I love jerky.
I also have to say those numbers are staggering.
They are.
So, Trevor, these farmers work so hard every day. If they say there's all this stress and insecurity, why do they stick with it?
Yeah, well, obviously every person has their own reasons, of course, but Eric did tell me about this feeling in farmers called the agrarian imperative. It's basically when farmers feel like their land is so much a part of them that losing it or giving it up would be like losing a limb or a family member. Though John said he doesn't take his farm that far.
Yeah.
He said despite the stress and change of the farming life, if he didn't love it, he wouldn't be doing it.
Well, kudos to them. They are awesome. I mean, that was just to sustain that and just to keep on going and be profitable and keep working so hard.
Yes, certainly grateful
Yeah.
for all of our farmers in our area. Trevor, thank you for that report.
Thank you for that. That was awesome.